I'm reading a text from Kimberly I received about a year and a half ago. My concept of time has really been skewed in the last year and a half, 2 years. But the text reads, I had a dream last night. I saw cars rolling and being washed down streets. I saw people in trouble. It happened on Taco Tuesday, which is coming up in the near future, next week. I saw entire rice crops being destroyed. I saw a record being set in flooding. Well, those type of dreams Kimberly's had her whole life. And she was very detailed and specific. Especially the rice thing I found it odd. So immediately I thought China, Japan, somewhere. Well, then Taco Tuesday came. We woke up to news of catastrophic flooding happening in southern France and northern Italy. Cars were washed down the streets. People died. Records were set. And it happened on Taco Tuesday, of all things. I texted her back. I go, well, I mean, you were mostly right, all except for the rice. And she said, look up risotto. So I looked up risotto. Risotto is a type of rice. And the largest producer on planet Earth of risotto came from northern Italy, of which that crop was wiped out. So 3 days ago, I get another text. I had another dream about floods. And I said, yes, I've made videos about this situation. We've had this problem before. I've warned people about this before. I called it hot rain. Hot rain on snow is a prescription for immediate and sudden disasters. And of course, I haven't been monitoring the GOES satellite very often. And so I went to the GOES satellite and saw what was headed California's way. Now, usually these storms get redirected. They get pushed north or south, or they get mowed down by a dry system that's swirling in front, but not in this case. And I texted back. I said, yes, we're going to get hot rain. I made a video about this several years ago where we had record snowpack in the Sierra Nevadas and then rainfall. And generally, March is the month for flooding. On the East Coast, West Coast, the Ohio River, I remember cresting in March. Why? Hot rain on snow. Well, the rain that's coming is going to be sustained. And in fact, it really should still be snowing. Being a snow skier in my younger years, I naturally loved March because that's when the Pineapple Express dumped huge amounts of snow in the Colorado mountains, Utah, Lake Tahoe. But now that snow is rain. And we look at the greater Pacific area, and Hawaii's just off to the left in the middle of the screen, partially obscured by a little patch of moisture. And one of the striking things that we do see is there's no completely gone and absent is the northern equatorial belt of water. On the Pacific side, it's gone. It's not even there. And we've explained this over and over again, how these huge vortices are grabbing that water and transporting it up to higher latitudes. And And this picture is so telling because, I'm so used to seeing equatorial belts of water. That's where your highest evaporation is. And we really, we see just at the southern equatorial belt, we see a patch right in the middle. And then some resemblance of a belt, trailing off to the left there, headed towards Australia, Philippines. But basically what's happening is one of these arms to a spiral have grabbed moisture and have directed it directly at California. There are systems that are driving this. They're vortex systems that are driving this whole phenomenon. And, in many, many years, they've been able to push this water north or south as soon as it got, in the old days, what I call old days, 10 years ago, when it got to the coast of America, these systems would redirect. Now, further out towards due south of Alaska, we started seeing that phenomenon playing out further out in the Pacific. Why? Well, in my opinion, these vortexes were getting larger and larger, harder to redirect, so they had to use the very low frequency radio waves and microwaves to redirect these storms further out in the Pacific, because just basically they couldn't push this wall of water out of the way. So that one year we had epic rainfall in California. That's when we told people to voluntarily evacuate from Oroville. And people called us fear mongers, of course. And then 3 days later came a mandatory evacuation, and chaos and horror ensued. Traffic was backed up. People were waiting if they were going to die in their cars trying to get out of Oroville. It's a good thing it's a small town. But so this is going to go on. I mean, we're going to get more rain. It's going to last for at least 3 or 4 days, and the flooding has already started. It's people are already dying. 22 to 30,000 people have already been displaced. This is just the beginning. And I wanted to make a video 2 or 3 days ago warning people about it, but the National Weather Service, God bless them, was actually warning people about this before it happened, which is nice to see, that somebody's going to finally address the situation. They're not going to be honest about what's really happening. They call it a river of moisture, but it's actually the arm of these vortexes, like a giant question mark or a giant comma that lower arm swings through. And I've said this over and over and over again. You get caught under one of these arms, and it is like a river, and you will receive prolonged rain for a long period of time. Some of the saving grace is that the clouds are fast moving, and they don't just park. But if that river just stays over you, you're going to get drenched anyway. And on these GOES satellites, since I started using them to track artificial systems, things that defy laws of weather physics, ever since I started repeatedly throwing these in people's faces, the 24-hour videos have gone down to 4 hours. You really can't see the entire rotations, and you can't see the progressions of the weather systems. They've really, really limited the number of frames that you're going to get to see. So, if you live below a levee, if you live along a river that drains the Sierra Nevadas, you are going to have to be proactive about what you're going to do. I was so amazed traveling over to California to witness this epic rainfall. Entire spillways that were miles, 5 miles wide. Literally, you get on the I-5 bridge, the pilings go for 15 minutes. and completely dry. People were planting crops down in this area. There were train tracks, telephone poles down in these areas. I did not know they were spillways. But, you know, to drive over it and see what looked like a lake, literally from as far as the eye can see, water in an area that was completely devoid of water over and over again for many years. So, you know, we made a video called Hot Rain. This is Hot Rain. If you notice, there's no northern equatorial belt of water. The northern equatorial belt of water goes right underneath Hawaii. It's not there. It's gone. And it normally traverses right to left. Any water that you see here is traversing left to right and is in much further northern latitudes. So stay aware. Keep an eye on these weather systems. Use the GOES webpage and stay tuned to your weather alert system. But if you live in a low-lying area, if you live next to a river, you know, it doesn't hurt to relocate for, you know, a week to higher ground, because you don't want to end up a statistic. And that's my greatest contribution I could give to this situation. So until next time, be prepared, not scared.